What's up, YouTube? Welcome to the Cutlass Board Games channel. I am Keith, the main guy here, and I design board games for a living, and I've made Cutlass. Cutlass was actually the game that the company was named after, and the channel was named after, and then was a project put to the side for a very, very long time. And I was slowly working on it, never thinking that it would get released. And then today, I'm giving it away for free. But we're going to dig into it. We're going to talk about how to play. We're going to go through everything, and then I'm going to, walk you through how you can get this game for yourself. So stick around. We've got some kind of cool stuff to go through with this game because I'm very proud of it. I think it's a fantastic game. I've been playing it a lot on the channel lately, and I want to give people, a bit more opportunity to get to it, get to play it. So what is Cutlass? Cutlass is a two-player Tableau building game. You'll have a row of cards out in front of you, and you are trying to build the best Tableau, basically. And we'll get into that a little bit more later on with how that works, so don't stress. But it's designed for the competitive Magic the Gathering player. That's me. I made this game because I played Magic for, 500 years, basically. And it's flat. It's dead now. It's so kind of done, really. I moved on a little while ago. I've been playing the competitive Pokemon TCG for a while. And then since then, I've kind of also retired from the Pokemon TCG, and I'm kind of looking forward to Riftborn as being the next thing that I spend time kind of learning and mastering. And in the meantime, I've been playing a lot of Cutlass. We've been doing a lot of testing. Tim, who you might know from the channel, we've been playing with him a lot. We've been doing different stuff and building decks and playing things. So there's been a lot going on. I've learned and mastered many a card game, but I'm trying to create something that is specifically for the competitive Magic player. I want it to have a high complexity level, and I want it to, tickle that brain of the competitive player. And it's in an expansive universe of pirates and sea monsters. There is a lot of lore, there is a lot of story behind all the different characters. We did, release a comic a long time ago, introducing some of that. A lot of it is kind of there. Maybe one day I'll go and do like a full actual storybook kind of a thing. But there's a lot of stuff that drives the different characters, why they're in the game, why they're here. For example, on screen I have Herazai and Tiboltimus. They are kind of the main villains-ish. I don't know. There's no like one bad guy. Everyone is kind of there for their own specific purpose. But a lot of them exist as foils to the main character, and then these are two of them. For example. And this is a project that I've been working on for 8 years. Basically, Cutlass was the first game that I started working on. It was really ambitious, it was way too big, and I didn't have enough money at the time to be able to make it exist. And so I made a small game instead, and I made Castles of Kalira. And that's kind of a prequel to the Cutlass universe and the Cutlass game, where you're settling and building the castle that becomes the Castle of Kalira. Which then leads into the setting to be the events of Cutlass. So Cutlass is set in Kalira and the seas surrounding that castle city. And in, kind of abandoning Cutlass initially, we went and made castles, then I went on and built like a whole bunch of other stuff, and then slowly I was like, maybe I come back to this, maybe I work on it, I'll build something, we test it, we change it. It's gone through a lot of insane, drastic changes to get much more to where it is today. And yes, it's completely free. It's actually been available for free for a while now, and I've been going and showing it off at conventions and stuff. But this is kind of like the first time where I'm doing a big, hey, yeah, the game's for free, you can have it, come get it, kind of a thing. Before it was more like, hey, this is a playtesting thing. And this is not like the full final release. I mean, it might be if the game never gets finished, but this is a release for you to be able to play at home. And then maybe later down the line, we might do like a final polished version, maybe add some stuff to it, maybe do a nice big print run. But that's if everything goes well. Well, let's dig into it. How do we play Cutlass? The first thing is you will be building a 40 card deck, which has one sea monster in it, and you get maximum 4 copies of a card. This is actually a photo of the deck that I'm playing right now, and you can see that I have my 40 cards. 10 piles of 4, basically. And this is kind of like a control deck that I'm playing at the moment. And deck building isn't super complicated. There is only 45 unique cards in the set, but building exactly what you need, and because there's not a lot of space, finding ways to make sure that you can kind of solve all the scenarios, you don't lose to one specific thing, and kind of guaranteeing exactly when you're going to get what you need is what is the big challenge. And a thing that I really, really enjoy when it comes to deck building this game, because there's a lot of cards that solve a lot of problems, and a lot of cards that create a lot of problems, and you've got to build a nice balance of doing both. So let's dig in a little bit. Let's have a look at the card layout breakdown. So this is the Leviathan, this is the Sea Monster. And at the top left, we have the discard cost, which you can see for the Leviathan is 5. All Sea Monsters have a discard cost of 5. Nothing has a discard cost of 4. Anything that says claim a treasure on it, which we'll get into later, has a discard cost of 3. And then you can have discard costs of 0, 1, and 2. And obviously, as you may guess, that is discarding cards from your hand. But again, we'll get into that a bit later. Next is the faction icon. So the faction icon matches the card border color. So the Leviathan is of the Void faction, and all Sea Monsters are of the Void faction. But there's 2 other factions, which is blue and red, which is Kalira and Pirates. And you can see there we've got Kalira with the crown and Pirates with the skull and crossbones. Classic. Next is the unit type. So as you can see, Leviathan is a Sea Monster, which has the scary dragon eye icon. But then we have from left to right event, crewmate, and structure. Event being the void sign, crewmate being the tricorn hat, and structure being the ship steering wheel. And then lastly, we have the big box of text at the bottom. I don't think anything needs to be elaborated about the card text box. It pretty much everything does what it says on the tin, but we will get into some more of that later on. This is pretty much everything that you need to know. A lot of the faction icon isn't super important, but it helps for colorblind accessibility because you can pick out the shape better than you can pick out a color. But most of the time, you're just all my red cards is the thing that I'm looking for, and then the unit type. And all of the structures are a building, so it's really easy to pick it out in the art. And all the crewmates has a guy front and center in the art, so it's really easy to pick them out. So it's not complicated to pick up and understand what a card is doing right away. Next up, we have setting up to play. So you've got to shuffle your deck first. Every game starts off this way, and then you randomly determine a first player and draw an opening hand of 7 cards. Then we do what's called a partial Paris mulligan, which I think is the best mulligan method from Magic the Gathering, where you put a number of cards from that opening 7 aside, and then you draw cards to replace them. So you could partial 5 and then draw 5, and then you shuffle those cards that you put aside back into the deck, and then the player that starts the game starts at their main phase. This is similar to Magic the Gathering, where you skip your upkeep step for the first player. Pretty straightforward. Next is playing a card to your tableau. So your tableau is the row of cards in front of you, but so again, obviously you have nothing there, and then you get to play stuff into that row. So in your main phase, you play a card to the rightmost spot in your tableau. To play it face up, you must discard cards equal to the number in the top left corner, but you may instead play it face down with development time equal to its discard cost. So for example, we've got the Leviathan up here, which has a discard cost of 5, and we've played it face down, and it gets 5 development time put onto it. If it is played face up, it activates and sends orders right away. And well, what's sending orders? Sending orders is when you play a card face up, or it is turned face up, it'll send orders. This activates the tableau going right to left by choosing a faction or unit type and then activating all effects of the cards that match. Cards can only activate from receiving orders once per phase. So in your main phase, you can play a new card, it sends orders to everything, it activates your entire tableau. Now, if you have a look at the diagram, we've just played Tyler the Seeker there up at the top. And when you play a card, you choose its faction or its card type. And in this example, let's say we picked faction, so all of the blue cards would activate, which means Scarshank Dreadbeard here, which is not of the Clearance faction, does not have a blue border, would not activate, but Seaside Barracks here down at the bottom would activate. But what if we picked crewmate instead? The unit type, well, Scarshank Dreadbeard is a crewmate, so he would activate, but Seaside Barracks is a structure, so it would not activate. Choosing what cards in your tableau you are going to activate by what card you've just played is kind of the main thing, like the main unique mechanic to the game. And deck building pays into this a lot as well. If you're playing only blue cards, like you saw my deck before, I only had 4 red cards and a couple of void cards as well, then the chances of me always being able to activate my tableau is really high. But the wider you spread, the more solutions to problems you might have, but you might have some harder choices when it comes to activating your tableau. And that's kind of the core thing. The core thing you need to learn and when it comes to the game. Next is damage. So whenever a card receives damage, it must stop and repair. You don't actually defeat stuff, you don't actually remove stuff from your opponent's tableau, which means you can play this funky, crazy, mad scientist kind of deck, and then you don't just instantly lose to another player because they're like, oh no, I killed your guy. Which is great. As a mad scientist myself, this is a thing that can be frustrating in a lot of card games. Now, damaged cards that receive orders do not activate and instead remove 1 damage. So it's like a stun counter basically, and you can remove them in a couple of different ways, but for the most part, it will slow you down from sending orders to all of your units. Now, sea monsters with 2 damage on it will not rampage, which we'll find out about later, and cards turned face up with damage will still activate, but will not send orders. Now I have 2 examples here. The first one is the Sun Crazed Cannoneer, which will just deal damage to anything, but it's only 1 at a time, and most of the damage dealt is only ever 1 at a time. And then we have Tyler the Seeker, which will turn a card in your tableau face up, and any development time becomes damage. So for example, the sea monster that we saw before, the Leviathan, played face down with 5 counters on it. Tyler would turn face up. The sea monster would activate, but it has 5 damage counters on it, which means it will not rampage. Again, which we'll get to later. Next is resetting the deck. So Cutlass actually started out as a deck building game where a very common thing is once your deck is empty, you shuffle it back and then you continue around because you're constantly adding cards to the deck. This is sort of similar to that. Now, if you would interact with your deck in any way and there's no cards left, you instead reset first. And then you reset by shuffling the discard pile into the deck and then banishing the top card. If you cannot reset, you then lose the game. Now, banish is a separate, different pile from discard. Think of it like exile from Magic the Gathering, and it's kind of removed from the game. There is only some cards that will interact with the banish pile, like Tyler here, where you can shuffle exactly 20 cards from your banish pile back into your deck, which is half of your starting deck, to get an extra turn, which is kind of a big deal, but it is kind of hard to get 20 cards in there, unless if your opponent is banishing cards from your deck. It's a nice hate card for that strategy. Now, if you can't reset, you lose the game. That means that once I've shuffled a whole bunch of my things, I might not be able to banish the top card, or too many cards have been banished, or I have nothing in my discard pile to shuffle because maybe my tableau is gigantic, or I have 100 cards in my hand. Then you would lose the game. But that's not the main way that a game ends. You could win the game instead of having just your opponent lose. And to win the game, the first player to receive 7 treasures wins the game. Now, to claim a treasure, you take the top card of your opponent's deck and add it face down to your treasure chest. You've just looted them. And you can look at those cards at any time. So if you've ripped a really important card out of your opponent's deck, like their sea monster, then you're able to go, ooh, this is really important strategic information to me. The other thing is, this is kind of like the Pokemon TCG prize mechanic, where in the Pokemon TCG, you start the game by removing the top 6 cards of your deck, and then as you score points, those 6 cards are returned to you. Now, if anyone has played competitive Pokemon TCG for a very long time, this is a deeply shit mechanic, where you can instantly create an unplayable game state for yourself by your most important cards being removed from your deck at the beginning of the game. Because you can only play 4 copies of something, there's nothing to guarantee that all 4 copies are going to be in the prizes, which is really awkward. Now, this is the opposite. You start your game with your entire deck, but the faster your opponent is at claiming treasures from you, the more likely they are to start taking these important cards out of your deck as they get closer to victory, which creates a different kind of tension where this is something you are doing to your opponent. The better you are at doing it, the less negative value they have, instead of the game doing it to you at the start and you just suffering for it from time to time, which I think is much more interesting. And then, like I said, once you've hit 7, then you win the game. But let's have a look at what the steps of a turn looks like. All Magic the Gathering players know that it's an incredibly complicated mess of phases and steps, and well, this game doesn't actually have that. This game really only has 5 phases, including the beginning of the construction phase, which probably could have just been construction phase, but I wanted an extra step just in case. And basically in this phase, you gain 1 construction point. That's it. That's all you do. Actually, unless you have 4 Tibultimus the Scorned in your banished pile, in which case, in the beginning of your construction phase, you would draw until you have 4 cards in hand. That's really the only 2 things that can ever happen in this step. So let's move on. What are we going to do with our construction point? Well, the construction phase is then when you spend construction points. So you can spend 1 construction point to remove 1 development time from a face down card. Like our Leviathan that we played face down before, with 5 on it, we could spend 1 construction point to tick that down to 4. When that gets to 0, that card would then turn face up and activate and send orders. We could also play an event card from our hand, which we'll get into in a sec. You can remove 1 damage from one of your cards, and you can activate a card with a construction point cost. So now I actually have 2 perfect examples of this. Let's start with the event. This is Carrion Deluge. This is an event card. You can tell because it has the event icon, which is the void sign, the big pink splotch, and also it does not have a discard cost. There is no number present in the top left corner. This is because you can only spend construction points to play an event card. And then basically its effect resolves right away. It is not added to your tableau, and then that card is banished. The other thing is activating a card with the construction point cost. So Remnants of Scarshank has a discard cost of 0. You could always just play it into your tableau in your main phase for free. But in your construction step, you may spend a construction point to return this card from your discard pile to your tableau. And that does not allow it to send orders, but basically you can pay that 1, put it into your tableau, which helps you get more guys in play. Now, when Remnants of Scarshank receives orders, you may discard this card from your tableau to draw a card. So basically, you spend the 1 construction point to put Remnants of Scarshank into your tableau, and then when he receives orders, he is discarded to turn that into a card. This is one of the kind of main draw engines for the aggressive pirate deck. It doesn't actually take that much to understand and kind of see how it loops and works, but when you first pick up the game, you're like, what am I doing? It's kind of difficult to go, oh no, wait, this is how I'm doing stuff. Alright, next is more construction phase. So cards may be turned face up by removing the last development time, causing them to activate and send orders. You may also discard cards to gain extra construction points as many times as you like. So if I have 5 cards and I need 5 construction points to turn my Leviathan face up, I can discard all those cards and then make that happen. Now you also lose all of your construction points upon leaving the construction phase, which sometimes sucks because you're like, oh, I needed this many or whatever, but it means that you're just like not banking it for later, and you're not going to use it in the remaining of your turn anyway, so it's best not to use any extras. However, you may want to discard all of the cards in your hand for what happens in the draw step, but it means that those extra construction points that you make do not have any value, because in the draw phase, if you have no cards in hand, draw 3 cards instead of just drawing the 1 card that you would normally draw. So sometimes having no cards in hand can always be better, and you'll always be drawing a whole bunch of cards. Because normally in your draw phase, you just draw the 1 card, which can be fine if you already have 7 or 8 cards, but if you've discarded everything, if you've played a whole bunch of stuff, if you have no cards in hand, you will draw 3 cards instead. This is to guarantee that you will never ever have a turn in this game where you say, well, I do nothing, pass. which is really, really common in Pokemon TCG, and is really, really common in Magic the Gathering, and it's my #1 gripe with both of these games. I should never be spectating my opponent playing the game, and Cutlass ensures that that never happens. You will always have something to do, you'll always be able to play something. It might be bad, but it will still activate your Tableau most likely, and then you'll still be doing stuff, you're still accruing advantage within the game. Now, additionally, if your opponent has more treasures than you, you get to draw an additional card. So you may be drawing somewhere between 1 and 4 cards in your draw phase, which is going to keep you alive and keep you playing stuff. Unless, if you have 4 Tibultimus banished, you skip the draw phase because you're drawing those 4 cards in the beginning of construction phase instead. Now let's go to the main phase. Now, main phase might have a lot of text in it, but we literally explained all of this already. This is playing a card from your hand to your Tableau, it activating and sending orders. So let's run through it. You choose a non-event card from your hand to play to the rightmost space of your Tableau face up, paying its discard cost, and then activate that card's effect if applicable. You may always choose to skip activating a card, either receiving orders or when you play it face up. Then choose faction or type and send orders to all cards that share that faction or type, with it going from right to left, activating those cards' effects if you so choose. So with the Tide Skipper example I have here, I may choose structure and then send orders to all structures because I have selected that unit type. You may instead play a non-event card face down, which receives development time equal to its discard cost, which in this case would be only 1. And then instead of playing a card to your Tableau, you may choose to play a single event card. Basically, in your main phase, play 1 card, maybe it sends orders. It's actually really straightforward, but obviously I have to have the really complicated full explanation just in case there's no edge cases, there's no misunderstanding. The gameplay itself is actually very straightforward. And then the final step of your turn is the Rampage step. Now, the Rampage step is only if you have a sea monster in play, and then if your sea monster wasn't activated this turn, it activates and then send orders to the cards to its left. So normally when you play a sea monster, it activates right away and then it sends orders. And then in every following turn, the sea monster activates, rampages in your Rampage step, and then sends orders down the line. Unless, if it has 2 or more damage on it, sea monsters do not rampage. Now, in just watching this video and getting the explanation for how the game works, you just have the ability to play, right? But one of the main things that you kind of learn through playing, and you can see Tim discover this in real time if you watch the videos and the gameplay stuff that we have on the channel, is that there's 3 main steps where you can have all of your Tableau activate. In the construction step, if a card is turned face up, it can activate and send orders to all the other cards. In your main phase, you can play a card face up, it activates and sends orders to all your cards, and then again in the Rampage step, your sea monster activates and sends orders to all your cards. So mastering getting all 3 steps activating and doing all of, you'll be getting 1 guy which says claim a treasure, could be claiming 3 treasures a turn if they're activating all 3 times, and that is, kind of the upper skill level that you're going to be looking for if you're playing this game very competitively. Now, how do you get the game? As you can see, I have a screenshot of the print and play files that I have set up. Basically, this game is a print and play that is for free. It is also on Cockatrice, but as I understand it, Cockatrice is not super reliable these days. It's a little bit dead, but it is on there nonetheless. And we have a Discord server, which I'll have a link for in the description. In that Discord server is access to all the resources of how to play the game. There's a lot of videos on the game being played and deck building and stuff like that to help get you started. There's a channel which just has all of the print and play files in there, so you can download the whole thing, print it out yourself and play it. And also a PDF of the rules. So if it's just easier for you to read through the whole thing rather than watch the video, you can go through and do that instead. And also I'm just there, so you can ask me questions about stuff and figuring out how it works. So that's the whole thing. Here's this game. I think is very, very good. I have worked on for a very, very long time. Now available for you to go and play it. Go and try it out, and then maybe you'll understand what's going on when we are playing games on the channel. But there you go. Get onto it, check it out, let me know what you think, and help this video find other people so other people can be playing Cutlass as well. And you can do that by hitting a comment, hitting the like button, and then help out the channel. I'm going to put a playlist up on the screen, which is going to have all of the gameplay videos of Cutlass and deck building stuff, so you can go and learn more about the game, check out more stuff, and you find out more that way. You can go and see the game in action before you choose to download it and try it out for yourself. So do some exploring, and then we'll see you in the Age of Steel.